Today's story is about poor boy Timmy. Timmy was a quiet boy with pale skin and brown hair. He often felt invisible. Every day he would walk through the school halls unnoticed by his peers. There was something about Timmy that made him seem distant, as if he was always lost in his thoughts. His classmates ignored him. They never included him in their games. It was as if he was a ghost, drifting through the school without anyone acknowledging his presence. Sometimes he felt like he was fading away into the background. Timmy longed to have friends. He wished they would accept him. He would often sit alone, watching the other kids play, dreaming of the day he could join them. But deep down he felt a strange sense of isolation, a feeling that he couldn't quite shake off. One day, a group of boys approached Timmy. They were the cool kids in school, the ones everyone wanted to be friends with. But their eyes held a glint of mischief, like they were up to no good. Timmy's heart leapt with hope. Maybe they wanted to be his friends. He imagined playing with them, laughing and having fun. But a sense of unease crept over him, as if something wasn't quite right. His hopes were quickly dashed. The boys just wanted to make fun of him. They laughed at his clothes, his hair, and the way he talked. Their laughter echoed in his ears, a cruel reminder of his loneliness. "Hey, loser," sneered Mark, the ringleader. His voice was cold and menacing, like a bully's taunt. "You wouldn't last a minute in the old cemetery at night." The words hung in the air like a challenge, daring Timmy to prove himself. His words cut deep, and Timmy felt a lump in his throat. The cemetery was a place of whispered stories and unspoken fears, a place where kids dared each other to go. The other boys laughed. Timmy's cheeks burned with shame. He felt humiliated and small, like he would never fit in. The feeling of isolation seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with its weight. He hated feeling like a coward. He wanted to prove them wrong. Determined to show his bravery, Timmy, who was just 12 years old, decided he would face his fears, no matter what it took. The cemetery awaited, shrouded in darkness and mystery, a place where kids tested their courage. "I'm not scared," Timmy mumbled, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound brave. His friends erupted in sinister laughter. "Prove it," one of them hissed. "Go to the cemetery tonight at midnight. We'll be watching from the gate." Timmy's stomach churned with dread. The cemetery was a place of shadows and whispers, even in daylight. But the fear of being branded a coward was worse. "Fine," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'll do it." The boy's eyes gleamed with a dark satisfaction. They knew they had ensnared him. Once the night came and Timmy's parents were asleep, Timmy found the opportunity to sneak out of the house and go to the cemetery in full secrecy. The clock struck midnight as Timmy tiptoed out of his house, the cool night air sending shivers down his spine. He walked down the dark, deserted streets, each step echoing in the silence. The closer he got to the cemetery, the heavier his footsteps felt. The iron gate loomed ahead, its rusty hinges creaking in the wind. Timmy paused, taking a deep breath to steady his nerves. He could see the faint outlines of his friends hiding in the shadows, their eyes glinting with anticipation. With a final, resolute step, Timmy pushed open the gate and stepped into the cemetery, the darkness swallowing him whole. As Timmy stepped through the creaking gate of the cemetery, the landscape around him was shrouded in darkness. The moonlight cast long, eerie shadows on the ground, and a thick mist rolled over the old, cracked tombstones. Broken branches on the ground looked like skeletal hands in the dark, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Timmy's flashlight beam illuminated cracked tombstones, revealing names long forgotten. He followed a dark, winding path, the overgrown grass brushing against his legs. In the distance, he could see an old, crumbling mausoleum, its broken doors hanging ajar. Shadows seemed to move behind the trees and tombstones, playing tricks on his mind. Timmy looked around nervously, every rustle of leaves sounding like whispers creeping closer. Every shadow seemed to shift and change, making him question what was real. He thought he saw figures lurking in the darkness, their forms barely visible. Despite the fear gripping him, Timmy was determined to prove his bravery to his so-called friends. As he ventured deeper, he encountered scary, elaborate statues covered in moss, their stony faces frozen in eternal watch. Overgrown crypts with vines creeping up their sides loomed in the darkness, adding to the eerie atmosphere. A broken angel statue with missing limbs stood solemnly, its hollow eyes seeming to follow his every move. He saw a large, rusty mausoleum gate, but fear flooded him, and he was too scared to push it open. Timmy shifted away and continued his path, determined to prove his bravery. The fog grew denser as he moved further in, obscuring his vision and making the air feel heavy and cold. Old cracked tombstones with inscriptions worn away by time stood like silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of the past. Timmy was so scared, trying to persuade himself that nothing was lurking in the shadows, but fear had taken over his mind. He couldn't resist the urge to flee as his gut instincts kicked in. Timmy's panic surged as he frantically sought an escape. The whispers twisted into sinister chants, and the shadows clawed at him with menacing hands. He dashed through the labyrinthine corridors, his heart pounding like a drum. Every turn dragged him deeper into the abyss. Now lost in the grand cemetery, Timmy was scared as hell, unable to find his way out. His so-called friends, thinking it would be funny, had left him alone and gone home without waiting for him. They didn't care if he would ever come out. The terror was suffocating. Was there any way out? The cemetery seemed to stretch endlessly, each path more confusing than the last. Timmy's breaths grew ragged, his legs trembling with exhaustion. He could hear the distant echoes of laughter, mocking him. He stumbled upon a broken gravestone, its inscription worn away by time. Was this a clue, or just another dead end? Little Timmy was lost in darkness and couldn't find his way out. Timmy never returned home that horrific night. The next morning, his parents were frantic with worry. They searched everywhere, calling all of Timmy's classmates' parents, but Timmy was nowhere to be found. The police then initiated a thorough search throughout the city. The search led them to the cemetery. The air was heavy with an eerie silence. They discovered young Timmy lying lifeless on the cold, damp ground, his small body rigid and frozen. His eyes were wide with horror, his face twisted in a silent scream. The flashlight he had clutched had rolled from his grasp, casting an eerie glow on a nearby tombstone. Whispers spread that he had been scared to death by something unseen, something otherworldly. They say he was tortured to death by evil spirits, who eventually harvested his soul, forcing it to join their merciless troop. Others say they don't believe Timmy's death had anything to do with paranormal entities, and he just died of extreme fear and chilling cold. I personally believe people feel safer to persuade themselves that they don't believe in what they fear the most. What do you believe really happened to poor Timmy? Write in the comments section. Would you dare to cross the cemetery in the middle of the night? Like and subscribe if you like this scary story and want to hear more.